Years later, after Prohibition was gone and forgotten, the goons stayed on. They became the Ford strongmen, when there were union men that needed to be brought into line. Prohibition was supposed to uplift the working man. These images are one footnote in Prohibition's legacy. During Prohibition, corruption reached nearly every layer of Detroit life. Protecting children was one of the driving concerns of Prohibition. Now, as the noble experiment came undone here, there was still one failure to come, one last chapter to the story.
It started, I was about 11, and I went on all the way up until I was about 14. They would give us this cut moonshine that they used to mix over on the east side, and as kids, we would go put these flat pints in our lumberjacks, you know, and go downtown to the Toller Hotel or the Statler Hotel and wait for a salesman to come out, and he'd go up to him and ask him, would you like to buy some whiskey? So he'd say, is this the good stuff? He'd say, oh yeah, right off the boat, you know, and we'd sell it to him, and we'd get $8 a pint.
It proved that there was some money to be made with the grown-ups, and all of us at an early age got into it.
Well, we used to go to Blind Pigs when I was younger, too young to be there.
The Detroit News had a big expose about grammar school children literally being drunk. Grammar school children, schools in middle-class neighborhoods, it didn't seem to be much of a respecter of class, would be found drunk, and there'd be bootleggers and blind pigs in school areas.
I was going with a girl that was going to Western High School, and I asked her, I says, well, I'd like to find some good whiskey. And she says, I can get it for you. And so I went over at 4 o'clock in front of Western, and she was there with her brother. He opened his school book case, and there was pints of whiskey in the school book case.
Parents begin insisting on what they call safety patrols to police the areas around schools. We get a prestige school like Cass Tech, where the students in the school were not allowed to go out for lunch for fear that they would be accosted by a bootlegger who would try to sell them some booze. We get one school that's literally closed, the Bishop School, because they just couldn't control the drinking in the area.
I know exactly the impression that my brother and kids got. They got the impression that life as such was a cheating life. Cheating because the father, my father and all the other kids' fathers were sneaking drinks. They were making bees beer, they were drinking rot gut, they were drinking winos, they were doing all kinds of and these kids couldn't believe that their families or that their fathers would break the law and do all that. So it made a kid think, well, I don't think so very much of the United States laws.
There was no law. There was absolutely no law during Prohibition. And as young as I was, I can still know that.
Prohibition had been passed in the name of women and children. Now, in the name of women and children, citizens began to agitate for repeal.
We believe that the 18th Amendment has failed, and failed badly. I'm a reformed prohibitionist myself. I hoped it was going to work. I'm forced to admit that it has not. The 18th Amendment has delivered this nation bound hand and foot to organized crime, financed by racketeers and gangsters, which are all synonymous with bootleggers.
Everybody felt that Prohibition was not working, and that someday, quite shortly, it would end.
No constitutional amendment had ever been repealed, and many felt it couldn't be done. But the campaign against Prohibition got sudden help from a national catastrophe, the Great Depression.
You had money in the bank and you couldn't touch it. Nobody could touch it. The banks were closed.
The bottom was just pulled out of everything. You just closed in at home, worried to death of how in the world were you going to be able to pay for what you ate.
In the panic of the Depression, Americans were prepared to look anywhere for jobs. The end of Prohibition would mean new jobs in the breweries, new tax revenues. Suddenly, repeal seemed a shortcut to prosperity, and Americans found a leader who promised them both.
This convention wants repeal. Your candidate wants repeal. And I am confident that the United States of America wants repeal.
15 years before, Detroit had been the first major American city to go dry. Michigan had hoped to be a model for the country. But in 1933, the state of Michigan became the first to vote for Prohibition's repeal.
Now it is for the people to decide. Already the people of Michigan have spoken. That is a good start. If all the citizens who favor the repeal of the 18th Amendment will go to the polls and vote for their whip delegates, we will then capture state after state. That means the end of this evil thing called national prohibition.
Only 4 more states to go and the long drought will be over. When Prohibition ends a few weeks from now, there'll be thousands more doing work like this and hundreds of millions in added revenue for Uncle Sam.
Remember, girls, the shaking of the cocktail is as important as the mixing. It takes rhythm. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
You have to remember that the Depression was so dismal. At last, we have something to be pleased about.
People were walking down the street cheering, you know, about beer was back and Prohibition was repealed, and it had a tremendous effect.
I can remember going to a West Side saloon, and it was so crowded you could hardly get to the bar. And people were singing "Happy Days Are Here Again" and drinking this beer at 5 cents a mug.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again.
Prohibition did not fulfill its promises, neither would repeal. Repeal didn't create many jobs. It certainly didn't end the Great Depression, even if for one night people wanted to believe it had.
Now there's no one who can doubt it now.
Everybody was in a celebrating mood, toasting everybody, and you could hear "Nostrovia Dobrze," you know, in the West Side, you know. It was great. It was great.
There'll be no more from now on.
The smugglers, of course, had nothing to celebrate. The citizens of Ecorse were out of business. People here went back to being as poor as they had ever been.
My dad lost his home over in Ecorse. We moved out of there, we moved up north, and it was hard going up there too, you know. Me and my dad, different times, would have to walk 12 miles into town and get a sack of flour from the Red Cross and carry it all the way back down the Carp River where we lived, which was 12 miles away. We'd have to take turns carrying it. By that time, them guys was losing their stuff, so I don't know where the hell they went after that, you know what I mean? I don't know where any of them guys went.
here again. Happy days are here again. All together, shout it now. There's no one who can doubt it now. So let's tell the world about it now. Happy days are here again. Your cares and troubles are gone. There'll be no more from now on.